Now, yeah. Now, in terms of procrastination, right? Uh, in terms of procrastination isn't a cause of things. It's a well, procrastination can cause certain things, but procrastination in and of itself is a symptom, right? And you can call a person lazy, but everyone procrastinates to a certain degree, right? Because I'll probably talk about this in a different video, because another person asked me to do something about laziness and inventions, right? Because laziness is to a certain degree procrastinating, but the reason why we innovate things is because due to laziness, like we want to find the easier path of doing things, right? So if we can make something that makes life easier, then we would do that, right? So laziness isn't a bad thing. It drives us to innovate. Now, in terms of procrastination, there's many reasons why we procrastinate, and one can be that you're feeling sick and you don't have the energy to push forward, so that's why you procrastinate. Or, like I said, you're lacking the motivation, and therefore procrastinate because nothing is driving you to do a certain task, right? Or another thing is you either have anxiety or depression. So anxiety is where you fear the events that are going to take place in the future, and depression is where you're guilty about the past. So they're basically very similar, but the difference between depression and anxiety is you're focusing on the future, right? That's what's going to happen. And depression is you're focusing too much on the past and what did happen already. Now the reason why people have anxiety is because of the unknown, right? People fear the unknown, and everyone has anxiety to a certain degree, right? But the people that have more anxiety are just more sensitive to fearing the unknown, right? Now, I'll talk about anxiety first. To battle anxiety, the thing is, I'm not perfect, but I'm still tackling it myself, and also depression as well. I wouldn't say I'm depressed, but I would say that everyone has some sort of level of guilt and some sort of level of anxiety. So it's just people that are diagnosed as having anxiety or depression are more on the extreme sides of the spectrum. Now, with anxiety, one way to battle that is competence, right? Or trying to figure out what is going to happen through basing it on your past experience. So now, what I mean by that is, so confidence, right? There's a saying, competence builds confidence, right? And what's the difference between confidence and anxiety, right? The difference between confidence and anxiety is you know what you're doing, and anxiety is you do not know what you're doing. You do not know what's going to happen, right? Now, like I said before, anxiety is because you don't know what's going to happen, and you're fearful of the unknown, right? Now, competence, you build competence over time because you do a lot of tasks over time, and you increase your skills, and your skills become better. Therefore, you're able to better predict what's going to happen when you do a specific thing, right? Now, that's the opposite of like fearing the unknown, because you have an idea of what's going to happen, and you have an idea of but there's still a bit of the unknown in the future, but at least you have an idea of what's going to happen, which makes you feel more comfortable and confident about the situation. Now, that's how you beat anxiety, is you put yourself in more of those situations, in those similar situations, and that anxiety level will go down, because now that you know what's going to happen, you can better prepare yourself for those situations. Now, like for instance, public speaking, right? You still may have anxiety for public speaking, because even if you've done it like a lot of times, like doing it a lot of times does give you competence and does give you confidence on it, but then you'll still have a certain level of anxiety, because there's still a level of unknown. Like you're still thinking, what does the other person, like what is the other person thinking, and what questions are they going to ask? And there's still a level of, you have to think on your toes. So therefore, yes, there is a certain level of unknown, and with that unknown, you have to sort of ask yourself, what's the worst case scenario? Like, what is the worst thing that's going to happen? And if the worst thing is not too bad, then you have to mentally tell yourself that it's going to be okay, and even if it does go bad, then the repercussions isn't that bad, right? Now, in terms of depression, on the other side of the spectrum, you have to learn to forgive yourself. Like, once something does go bad and everything is in the past, the reason why people have depression is because they're thinking about the past and they're not forgiving themselves, or someone hasn't forgiven them. That's the reason why they feel bad about themselves as well, and therefore they feel guilty at the same time, right? So you have to, in that case, you have to learn to forgive yourself. Then you'll lift the burden of depression off yourself, because depression is usually when you feel really bad about something that happened back in the past. Not to say that depression could be from some other reasons, like physical ailments, or something like an imbalance of nutrients in your body, because sometimes we feel depressed not because we're guilty or anything, or we feel anxiety because of lack of nutrients. And the thing is, it's not the lack of nutrients that causes, so the lack of nutrients or the imbalance in our body just amplifies our feelings towards feeling depression and anxiety, right? But it doesn't necessarily cause them in the first place. Like for instance, a traumatic experience, right? A person experiencing a traumatic experience, if they were healthy, they would probably be able to handle the situations like a lot better, right? But if they experience trauma, plus they also had unhealthy habits, like on top of that, then basically their body will go to, they'll be affected much more, because their body is trying to, it's dealing with a lot of things, right?